In this video, we are going to discuss about oxidative phosphorylation. Now, when we were discussing about ATP and we were talking about the different ways by which ATP was formed, we spoke about three methods, one being oxidative phosphorylation, one being photophosphorylation, and another being substrate level phosphorylation. Now, photophosphorylation is seen in the photosynthesis, in the light reactions process. Substrate level phosphorylation, we have already seen it in the glycolysis and Krebs cycle, where ATP is formed during the metabolic pathways of glycolysis and Krebs cycle. This is the third method of ATP formation, where the energy, the chemical energy that has been stored in NAD and FAD from glycolysis and Krebs cycle, that chemical energy is used to synthesize ATP. So that's why it's called as oxidative phosphorylation. So what happens in oxidative phosphorylation? Now in oxidative phosphorylation, the NADH undergoes oxidation in the presence of oxygen. So compulsory, you will need oxygen here. So what it does is, when it undergoes oxidation, it releases electrons and protons. Similarly will be the case of FADH2, which also when it undergoes oxidation, it forms FAD and it forms electrons and protons. Now, these electrons and protons, they move through, specifically the electrons, they move through a series of electron carriers. They move through a series of electron carriers which are a part of an elaborate electron transport chain, also called as ETC. Electron transport chain, also called as ETC, which is present in the membrane of mitochondria. It's present in the membrane of mitochondria. Okay, so these electrons, when they move through these different carriers, they create or they establish a proton gradient. They establish a proton gradient, and this proton gradient creates a condition where there is movement of protons. Movement of protons from high concentration region, from region of high concentration to region of low concentration. This is simply your chemiosmosis. We have discussed this during the photosynthesis chapter also. Okay, so when this happens, there will be a certain enzymatic proton channel called ATP synthetase. So this movement of protons, it facilitates ATP synthetase to form ATP. And all of this is happening because these electrons are moving through the electron carriers. So here what is happening? The NADH and FADH, which stored the high energy electrons in the form of, so this high energy electrons, they are nothing but equivalent to chemical energy. These high energy electrons are released to pass through this electron carriers and form the proton gradient. So here two things is very important. One is the oxidation of the NADH and FADH. 2. Passing of the electrons through the electron carrier. And 3. Establishment of the proton gradient. These three steps combine with the oxidative phosphorylation. Begins with the oxidation of NADH and FADH2 and ends with the phosphorylation of ADP into ATP due to the electron movement. So all this happens in the oxidative phosphorylation, and everything is happening in the membranes of mitochondria, and more specifically we say it as the inner membrane of mitochondria. So what are these electron carriers and where are they located and how is the entire process is happening, that we will see in the preceding and in the succeeding videos.